Revenge with Karen.
The first thing I noticed was the smell. Offices aren't supposed to have a smell, just that usual blend of burnt Keurig pods, old HVAC, and passive aggression. But that morning, the place reeked of something else. Absence, like a hotel room right after a checkout. Desks were deserted, monitors black. Someone left a banana on the break room counter that had gone from yellow to funeral brown in 3 days flat. And my keycard still worked, which meant one thing: nobody had revoked access. Which was odd, considering the man currently sitting in my chair. The chairman, yes, that chairman, the one with the eerie calm of a chess grandmaster, and a LinkedIn photo that hadn't changed since Y2K, was just there, legs crossed, sipping green tea out of one of the branded mugs from our last failed rebrand. He didn't look up at first, just gestured toward the corner of my desk. Single folded piece of company letterhead sat there like it had been waiting for me. I picked it up. Scrawled in the CEO's handwriting, more chicken scratch than cursive, were 10 words. Gone to close a deal with your ex-colleague. You're in charge. That was it. No greeting, no explanation. Not even a timestamp. Now, before we go any further, hey, if you're into stories where boardroom drama meets silent revenge and people actually get what's coming to them, maybe hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Helps keep the coffee flowing and the pettiness alive. Back to the weirdness. The chairman finally spoke. Don't ask questions you already know the answer to. Then he stood, patted the back of my chair like he was tucking in a toddler, and walked into the glass-walled conference room like it was just another Monday. No offer of context, no corporate jargon filler, just vibes. I checked the calendar on my monitor. All hands canceled, budget sync canceled, daily stand-up TBD. I opened Slack Ghost Town. The CTO's status was just a cactus emoji. HR's last message was 4 days ago, out today, back Monday. Don't burn the place down, it was Monday. No one was back except me, and Mr. Zen Garden in a suit. It was supposed to be a long weekend. I'd taken PTO like a responsible adult, hiked, logged off. Didn't check email, which, yes, is the only vacation rule we can still control in this capitalist meat grinder. And I came back to find the entire company behaving like it had been hit with a very specific rapture. One that took everyone except me and the corporate version of the Grim Reaper. Then the first real red flag, a private message from the CTO, timestamped at 5:03 a.m. CTO, private. Did you approve the Series C doc update? Your name's on it. No greeting, no context, no emojis, just that. I clicked through the link he sent. It led to a folder titled Investor Brief Round C Final, and buried inside it, next to 3 out-of-date Excel sheets and a term sheet I definitely hadn't seen before, was a PDF marked signed SD, my initials, slapped at the bottom of a doc I'd never touched. Worse, the signature looked exactly like mine. Even the little loop in the T and the clause they were referencing gave away veto power to the CEO. Over everything, I felt a sharp pressure behind my eyes. The kind of stress headache that blooms when betrayal wears a silk tie and drinks imported water. So now I had a chair who refused to explain why he'd appointed me babysitter, a ghost town of an office, and a term sheet with my forged signature on a clause I'd never sign in 1,000 fireable lifetimes. My gut told me this wasn't abandonment. It was a setup. Silent coup staged during my PTO window. Well, if they wanted silence, they'd get it, but not the kind they were expecting. I started copying files, not to a shared drive, not to the cloud. No, to an encrypted offline USB I kept for emergencies. I pulled email logs, access records, every Slack archive from the last 2 weeks. My hands were steady, but my heart was pounding like a tech demo 5 minutes before showtime. Because when your CEO vanishes with a rival and leaves you holding the keys to the office, you're either the scapegoat or the savior. I hadn't decided which one I wanted to be yet. But either way, someone was going to regret thinking I was just the cleanup crew. The first thing I did was check the time. 9:12 a.m. That's prime chaos hour. People are usually slamming coffee, panicking over last night's forgotten to-dos, sending calendar invites like they're trying to summon demons. But today, silence, like the entire company had been unplugged. My Outlook was a graveyard. Meeting invites still on the books were mysteriously marked tentative or deleted entirely. The recurring team syncs I led every Monday morning vanished. I tried pinging Lauren in HR. No reply. Tried Samir in legal. Nothing. Tried Mason, my right hand in ops, guy who once answered a Slack ping during his colonoscopy. Nada. The only sign of life was the blinking cursor in my private Slack thread with the CTO, Evan. Evan, did you approve the Series C update? I responded immediately. Me, which update? He replied in under 10 seconds. Evan, your name's on the revised term sheet. Clause 12C. Please tell me you saw that. I didn't. I hadn't. My brain did this thing it does when it's about to implode. Zooms out like a drone camera. I was looking at myself from above, sitting in a dead office, staring at a message that might as well have said, "Congratulations, you just got voluntold to walk the corporate plank." Clause 12C was a nightmare I knew well. It gave the CEO unilateral power to dissolve departmental budgets in strategic realignment scenarios. Legal speak for, if he wanted to cut your team and blame the market, he could. With my signature on it, it'd look like I handed him the scissors. I pulled up the document again, skimmed to the signature block. There it was. Samantha Tran in my usual loopy cursive, complete with digital timestamp and audit trail metadata. Except I never signed it, and the timestamp, smack in the middle of my PTO. I'd been in Utah, no cell reception, no VPN, and definitely no term sheet authorizations. My mouth went dry. I double-checked my sent mail. No DocuSign email, no login attempt, no 2FA alert, nothing. But the audit log claimed it came from my account using my saved signature with full access credentials. It wasn't just a forged document, it was a forged you, and someone had practiced. That's when I started to feel it, not panic, not yet. Just the hot, slow burn of insult. Whoever did this wasn't just sloppy, they were confident. Confident enough to think I'd either roll over or be gone long enough that it wouldn't matter. That by the time I got back, the papers would be signed, the deals locked, and the exit strategies executed. Except the plan had a fatal flaw. I came back early, not by much, less than 24 hours. But sometimes that's all it takes for the wrong witness to walk in, for the wrong person to open the wrong folder and ask the right question. I texted Evan, "Don't forward this. Meet me in the freight stairwell in 10. If someone was watching Slack or email logs, they wouldn't catch that. Old school paranoia, courtesy of my time in compliance. I grabbed my coat and the USB drive, locked my office behind me, and took the back stairs 3 floors down. Evan was already there, hoodie over dress shirt. He looked like someone who'd aged a year in a weekend. I didn't say anything, he said, no hello. But that signature, it's too clean. Vector points match your normal drag curve, which means it was either lifted from an old contract or someone's been practicing on a tablet. My stomach dropped. I traced the IP logged for the signature, he added. It wasn't from your device. It was from the CEO's MacBook. We stared at each other in the silence that followed. Somewhere far above us, an elevator dinged like a slow bell toll. I finally said it out loud. He's setting me up. Evan didn't deny it, just leaned against the wall and asked, "What do we do now?" The old me might have said get legal, but legal had ghosted. HR, also Mia, which left us exactly one move: isolate, contain, and counterstrike. I exhaled and flipped into ops mode. First, I need a full list of docs tagged under my credentials in the past 14 days. Contracts, email approvals, access logs. Cross-ref them with VPN activity. If I didn't sign it, want to know who did. He nodded, already pulling up a terminal on his phone. And Evan, I said, turning to leave. No one else gets looped in yet, not until I know who's still on payroll and who's already been bought. Because at that moment, I didn't know who was behind it. I just knew this wasn't a betrayal. It was a hostile transfer of power, and they didn't realize the lights were still on. There's a sick kind of poetry to digital crime. No ski masks, no safecracking. Just spreadsheets and timestamp metadata hiding in plain sight. And the worst betrayals, they don't bleed, they breadcrumb, bit by bite. I started in my inbox. Nothing recent from the CEO, no surprise there, but I checked the deleted items folder. Buried deep between spam filters and calendar junk was something he probably thought was gone for good. A draft, untitled, unsent, but auto-saved. Subject, let's move before she's back. The body was bare bones. Her calendar says she's out until Tuesday, but just in case, get the signatures processed by Sunday night. I'll loop you in on the cap table once the dummy entity is finalized. No greeting, no sign-off, just like the note on my desk, rushed, panicked, and ugly with intention. The recipient, my ex-colleague, Jess Marlin, same Jess who'd been strategically restructured 18 months ago after botching a vendor compliance audit that cost us $500,000 in clawbacks. She'd been the golden girl until she wasn't, until I caught her fabricating supplier reviews and quietly handed the evidence to legal. She vanished overnight, no LinkedIn update, no goodbye party. And now, it seemed, she'd resurrected, wearing the CEO's trust like a stolen coat. Stared at that draft for a full minute before opening the access logs. The shared drive hadn't just been busy. It had been humming. Dozens of folders accessed while I was on PTO. Some flagged board materials, other strategic planning, but a new one stood out. Legacy Stakeholder Archive. A weird name, one I'd never seen. I cracked it open. Inside, a spreadsheet titled C Transition V Final. I opened it. A column of executive names. Budget reallocations. Revised reporting lines. New job titles for people I hadn't even interviewed. All of it dated for rollout this week. Under my name, advisor role pending Q4. Non-voting. I didn't even get a demotion. I got erased. The real bombshell came next. I found a DocuSign envelope ID logged under my credentials. At first glance, it looked legit. All the standard fields were populated. Timestamp, 2:14 p.m. Friday. But I had photo timestamps from Zion National Park. No reception, no Wi-Fi, no chance in hell I could have signed anything. I checked the IP address on the signature event. Not mine, not even close. It traced to a generic desktop located in conference room C, not even his own office. I sat there, trying to feel shocked. I couldn't, just cold, heavy, like I'd swallowed a stone. They hadn't just forged my signature, it forged a reality in which I was complicit. I plugged in the USB drive. The good one. The one I never mentioned during IT audits. The one with its own AES encryption, completely disconnected from our cloud infrastructure. I started dragging files, email logs, Slack exports, access reports. I screen grabbed the draft email to Jess, recorded my screen scrolling through the altered spreadsheet, and timestamped the VPN logs from Evan's poll. Didn't know who else was involved. But I knew Jess, she didn't improvise. She needed structure cover, which meant this wasn't just a quick play, it was a handoff. The CEO needed an out, Jess needed back-in, and I was the collateral cleanup, but they'd miscalculated something critical. I don't go quiet. I go underground. There's a difference. By the time the clock hit 11:45 a.m., I had a clean offline copy of every incriminating document. I labeled the folder, in case of fire. Old habit. My last company went under because no one believed the whistleblower until it was too late. I learned then, truth is worthless unless it's ready for deployment. I sent Evan one line, contingency plan in motion. Watch your logins. Then I closed my laptop, stood slowly, and walked out of my office. In the hallway, I passed the chairman again. He was in the same glass conference room, sipping the same tea, scrolling on what looked like a physical newspaper. He didn't say a word, just tapped the window once with his knuckle like he was counting. I didn't wave, because it wasn't time for performance. It was time for strategy. They'd made their move. Now I'd make mine. He was already there when I returned from grabbing coffee I didn't even want, like some kind of phantom summoned by motion detectors and executive dysfunction. Same glass-walled conference room, same chair, same mug, same unbothered posture. If it weren't for the fact that my office was now a live crime scene, I might have thought I was trapped in a Kafka cosplay where the chairman just was, eternal and mildly bored. He looked up as I passed, then tapped 2 fingers on the tabletop like he was calling a dog that hadn't misbehaved yet. I stood in the doorway. Do you live here now, or is this a silent protest? He cracked the faintest smile. Neither, just observing. Gestured to the chair across from him. Have a seat or don't. I didn't move. He reached into his leather folio, of course he had a leather folio, probably monogrammed with the tears of overworked assistants, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. No watermark, no legalese intro. Just a bold heading, Corporate Charter Clause 6.2b. Emergency Delegation of Operational Authority. He slid it across the table without looking at me. Is this your way of telling me I'm the last person standing? He took a slow sip of tea. No, it's my way of telling you I'm not going to stop you. From doing what? Whatever you're already doing. I didn't sit, but I did scan the clause. It was obscure, buried deep in the founding documents nobody ever reads past onboarding. Basically, in the event of executive absence, inaction, or suspected breach of fiduciary duty, operational authority could be temporarily assumed by any VP with both tenure and departmental clearance, pending board notification. Not board approval, just notification. It was like a cheat code designed to be ignored until someone needed to use it. You want me to invoke this, I said flatly. I want nothing, he replied. I just wanted you to be aware it exists. I stared at him. You're not denying what's happening. He looked genuinely amused. Nile is for people still pretending to be surprised. I finally sat, the paper still in my hand. Jess is involved, I said. There's a forged term sheet, a fake signing, and $2.5 million moved to a consulting firm no one vetted. He didn't blink. They're trying to cut me out before whatever merger fantasy they cooked up goes live. He nodded once, then tapped the table again, 3 slow beats like a drum roll for grown-ups. Do what you need to do, said, but understand this. Silence can be consent or it can be cover. I narrowed my eyes. And what are you giving me? A moment, he said, standing, to decide which one I'm offering. Then he walked out, same slow gait, same neutral expression, and left me in a glass box holding a paper that gave me permission to burn the place down politely. I stared at the clause. It was barely a paragraph, but it was a scalpel. Clean, precise. If I filed it now, board wouldn't be able to reverse it without majority consensus. That would take days. And in corporate time, days are decades. I pulled out my phone and texted Evan. We're not asking for permission anymore. He responded immediately. Evan, you're triggering clause 6.2b. I'm acknowledging its existence. Loudly. I walked straight to legal's empty office, unlocked the compliance terminal with my admin key, drafted the emergency operational safeguard notice. No dramatics. Just the facts. As per corporate charter clause 6.2b, I am assuming temporary operational oversight in light of recent executive absence and suspected breach of fiduciary duty. This notice constitutes formal board notification, effective immediately. I attached a PDF of the clause, timestamped everything, and sent it directly to the board alias. Then, for good measure, I printed a hard copy and walked it to the document archive scanner myself. Not because I didn't trust the cloud, but because sometimes the physical weight of a page is the only thing that makes the message land. When I returned to my desk, the chairman's mug was still there. Steam rising, tea half full, like he knew I'd do it, like he didn't need to stay and watch the match hit the fuse. And that's when I realized this wasn't just a test. It was permission. If they were going to treat me like a threat, I was done being polite about becoming one. By noon, the building felt even emptier, like the HVAC system had started exhaling secrets. Every hallway echo sounded a little too sharp, like it was waiting for someone to yell fraud, and kick off a SWAT-style corporate purge. I wasn't ready to go full sirens just yet. First, I needed a war room. I texted 3 people. No details, just quick touch base. 3rd floor lounge, 12:20. Don't reply, just show. They knew better than to ask questions. If I used that tone, the one I reserved for mid-crisis system crashes and pre-audit fire drills, they came running. By 12:18, the room smelled like takeout and fear. Evan was already there, laptop open, typing like he was coding a getaway plan. Nisha from finance came in next, hair still wet from a gym shower, eyes already scanning the room for bad news. Then Lauren from HR, bless her, walked in with a smile that melted the second she saw my face. I didn't sugarcoat it. CEO's gone rogue. Jess Marlin's involved. My signature was forged on a Series C clause that hands him total control. There's a $2.5 million consulting payout to an LLC I can't trace, and the chairman just handed me the clause that lets me seize the wheel. Lauren blinked first. Wait, Jess? Reincarnated in sleaze and spreadsheets, I muttered. Nisha crossed her arms. So this is a hostile play. No, Evan said it was. But she came back early. That earned me a half smile from Nisha and a small nod from Lauren. I could feel the room shift. Fear didn't leave, it just got organized. We need to contain the blast radius before it hits the boardroom, I said. Right now, we assume every Slack message is visible, every email scanned. We work old school. No names, no details. We write nothing we wouldn't defend in a deposition. Evan pulled up a blank Google sheet, local only offline, and titled it Vacation Schedule. Inside, he started typing aliases, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. We weren't planning a coup. We were planning containment, the only thing more dangerous than revenge in a corporate ecosystem. First, we listed systems that could be manipulated remotely. Payroll, budget portals, vendor approval queues. Nisha flagged 2 POs that had been fast-tracked over the weekend, both routed through the CEO's temporary assistant, who, shocker, didn't exist in HR's employee system. Next, Lauren flagged 3 recent hires who didn't match any onboarding files. Ghost employees. Or, more likely, fake identities used to funnel cash out before the floor collapsed. Listed action items. Freeze POs above $100K under pending compliance review. Revoke VPN access for any user created in the last 30 days. Flag external transfers for accounts tied to Phoenix Consulting LLC. Notify insurance liaison anonymously about potential breach indicators. Everything was couched in hypotheticals. Every request passed off as routine audit prep. We weren't accusing anyone. Yet, Evan's alias in the doc was Atlas. I didn't ask if that was a joke. Probably not. We worked in silence for 30 minutes before I stood and opened my laptop. "I'm filing the notice," I said. No one objected. I copied the draft I'd prepared from legal's terminal, added language referencing preventative action during executive ambiguity, and CC'd the chair, compliance oversight, the general counsel alias, knowing full well it hadn't been monitored in 2 days. I didn't ask for votes. I wasn't building consensus. I was sending a flare into the sky that said, someone still has their hands on the wheel. Subject line, Emergency Operational Safeguard Clause 6.2b activation, Temporary Oversight Protocol, attached, the Charter Clause, a list of known anomalies, my authorization. I hit send. The moment the email left my outbox, I felt it. Not relief, not yet, but that strange, grounded electricity that hums under your ribs when you stop reacting and start moving. I turned to the team. If they try to escalate, they'll go through me now. The clause buys us days, maybe only hours, but it's enough. Lauren raised her brows. Enough for what? I smiled. To make this whole mess traceable and survivable, because for the first time since I found that cursed note on my desk, I wasn't just protecting my job. I was reclaiming it, with teeth. It was a little after 3 p.m. when the first major crack split the dam. Ping. A secure message from Nisha in finance, marked confidential in all caps, followed by 2 red exclamation marks. Nisha wasn't the type to get dramatic. Her idea of a crisis was misaligned columns in Excel. When she sent a flagged alert with a subject line like unusual disbursement, urgent, I knew it wasn't just bookkeeping weirdness. Inside, a single line item buried in a vendor payout batch from Friday evening. $2.5 million wired to an entity named Phoenix Consulting LLC. I stared at the name. Something about it smelled like a cigar in a rental car. Nisha, I messaged, get me the incorporation details. She beat me to it. LLC was registered in Delaware, of course, and the listed address was a P.O. box shared by half the shell corporations in the tri-state area. But the kicker, the point of contact was one Jessica M. Marlin. There it was, the full circle. The ghost from HR Purgatory had returned with a vengeance, and now she had $2.5 million of our money. I called Nisha immediately. Tell me that Wire had a vendor approval trail, I said. A long pause. It did, but it's thin. Just a signed approval form from executive leadership. No procurement review, no compliance check. And who signed it? Another pause. DocuSigned, CEO's account, and yours. I closed my eyes. Mine, yes, but the timestamp's Friday, 5:49 p.m. I was still off-grid in Utah, face down in a beanbag with a migraine and 0 bars. Nisha lowered her voice. Sam, your signature's being used like a master key. I hung up. Not rudely, just decisively. There was nothing more to say until I was holding a flamethrower. Next, I messaged Lauren. I needed to see how deep the roots ran. She showed up in my office 5 minutes later with a manila folder. Physical, smart. I started cross-referencing new hire forms from the past 45 days, she said, shutting the door behind her. There are 9 employees listed as remote contractors under onboarding IDs that were retired 2 quarters ago. Ghosts, paid ghosts, she confirmed, all routed through auto-approved payroll cycles. The account info, all traced to the same Chase Bank routing number. Different names, but same hand writing the checks. Lauren nodded grimly. This isn't sloppiness. It's a drain. Someone's been pulling the plug behind the drywall. My jaw clenched. I stared out the window at the parking lot, where a single leaf blower was valiantly waging war against autumn. Below, everything looked normal. Inside, I was standing on top of a ticking ledger bomb. It was time. I grabbed my phone and called the one person who could tell me how much rope I had left. Richard Brenner, our firm's outside legal advisor. Old school, well-connected, and allergic to small talk. He answered on the second ring. If this is about Clause 6.2b, you're already operating under temporary authority. If it's about Jess Marlin, then we need to talk. She's siphoning, I said. They hires shell vendors, forged approvals. And they used my signature to do it. A pause. I could practically hear him adjusting his glasses. Have you filed the internal protection notice? Already did. Then here's what you need to know. This is actionable. If you hold your line, what does that mean exactly? It means no backpedaling, no apologizing, no emails with the word maybe. Document everything. Keep it internal until you have full chain of custody proof. Escalate through me. He lowered his voice. You're on the right side of this, but if you blink, they'll make you part of it. I thanked him and hung up, blood vibrating in my veins like a tuning fork. This wasn't just fraud. This was a hostile financial disembowelment disguised as a leadership transition. And I'd been cast as the naive fall girl who let it happen while sipping kombucha in a hammock. But I wasn't that woman. I was the one who had every single file backed up on a triple encrypted drive. I was the one who knew where all the operational bodies were buried. I was the one who'd kept the company afloat during the pandemic when half the leadership team had wellness sabbaticals. I wasn't cleaning up anymore. I was hunting. And when I was done, there wouldn't be a single ghost left to bury. The call came in at 5:07 a.m. I was already awake, couldn't sleep. Too much noise in my head. I'd been staring at the ceiling fan spinning like a lazy lie for 2 hours when the burner phone I kept in my nightstand lit up. No caller ID. Just a number with an international code I didn't recognize. I answered anyway, instincts humming like exposed wire. His voice hit me like stale champagne, overconfident, a little slurred, and starting to go flat. Samantha, long pause. You need to stall the board. He didn't say hello, and ask how I was. Didn't even bother pretending this wasn't a full-blown emergency. I didn't respond. I wanted him to fill the silence. He did. They pulled out. My jaw tightened. Who? I asked. The firm. They backed out. Said the numbers didn't check out. That we overleveraged revenue forecasts, which is bullshit because Jess said she had the cap table locked. She guaranteed it. They used our pipeline to anchor their own deal, then ghosted. His voice cracked, like it physically hurt to admit he'd been played. I let that sit for a beat. Then, so there's no merger. No, now it was a whisper. There was never going to be. They used Jess as a proxy to extract our data, poached 2 of our junior dev teams, and now we're exposed. If the board finds out before we plug the hole, you're out of time, I said, calm as black coffee. I need you to stall, he snapped. Just buy me 48 hours. I'll get it under control. It was so casual, so entitled. Like I was still the employee he could loop in last minute to cover the mess he made while chasing his next delusion. You forged my name, I said flatly. Silence. You used my digital signature on 3 term sheets and 2 vendor approvals. Jess rerouted $2.5 million through Phoenix Consulting. HR's logging ghost contractors. Finance is sitting on fraudulent disbursement reports. Want to talk about control? A breath on the line, shaky. I didn't mean for it to get this far, I cut him off. You meant for me to walk in Monday, pick up the mop, and clean the blood off the walls while you rode a ghost merger into your next executive gig. No, Sam, come on, that's not fair. Neither is identity fraud. His voice shifted then. Drop the charm. Tried a different angle. You can't do this. We'll both go down. No, I said, voice steely. Go down? I already filed the emergency operational safeguard. The board has been notified. I hold temporary authority per clause 6.2b. You didn't. I did. And I didn't ask for permission. A pause, a furious inhale, then a cold, controlled growl. You think the board will back you over me? I let the silence stretch again, then delivered the final pin. I think they already have. You haven't been copied on anything in 48 hours, not even on the executive directory anymore. Another beat of stunned silence. I heard the background noise, voices, traffic, maybe a train station. Wherever he was, it wasn't home. He wasn't even on domestic soil. He was scrambling to escape the wreckage while I was already salvaging the foundation. I just need a little more time, he tried again, quieter now. Just a few days. Let me fix this. I stood, walked to my kitchen window, watched the streetlights flicker on over empty sidewalks. You had your time, I said. Now it's mine. He didn't hang up. He just faded. I think he realized right then that he wasn't talking to the woman he'd left behind on Friday morning, the one he thought was loyal enough to cover for him, compliant enough to disappear quietly. No, he was talking to the woman he tried to erase. And I'd come back with the claws, the evidence, and the will to weaponize both. Powered off the phone, removed the SIM, and dropped it in my French press. He was done, and I wasn't finished. He came back with the wrong kind of drama, 2 buttons undone, tie crumpled in his fist, and a carry-on that looked like it had been dragged through a bar fight. Hair unwashed, eyes bloodshot, and for the first time since I'd known him, sweat on the collar. The reception desk buzzed me before he even made it through security. "He's back," the intern whispered. The building itself needed a heads up. I didn't rise. Just folded the last page of the incident log, clicked save on a file labeled CEO Exposure Master, and waited. Footsteps thundered down the hallway like a drunk parade. He didn't knock, just shoved the door open like he still owned the hinges. "Samantha," he barked, "we need to talk." "Where's the chairman?" I leaned back, slow and still. "Glass conference room. Same place he's been all week. I need access to the board. Right now." "They're not returning my calls." I raised an eyebrow. Maybe they're busy. Or maybe they got used to hearing from someone who doesn't sign things under other people's names. He stormed past me, heading straight for the chairman's lair like a man on fire looking for water. The chairman didn't stand. He never does. He simply looked up, then flicked his eyes toward me, sitting composed at the far end of the corridor. Then, no more effort than brushing lint off a sleeve, he spoke. "She's filed the protection clause. You now report to her, just like that. No big reveal. No operatic confrontation, just a sentence, a verdict." The CEO froze like he'd walked into an invisible wall. "What the hell does that mean?" "It means," I said, stepping into the room, "that your access to all executive systems has been suspended, pending board review. Your expense account is frozen. All future communications with the board must go through me. You don't have that authority." "I do," I replied, calm as stone. Clause 6.2b, triggered under grounds of suspected breach. Full documentation was submitted Tuesday. You can appeal during the next scheduled board session, assuming you're still employed by then. He blinked, opened his mouth, closed it. The room felt heavy, not with shouting, but with absence. The absence of power he'd counted on. Absence of fear I used to carry. The absence of anyone coming to his rescue. He tried again. "I just need some time to explain. This wasn't what it looks like." "Jess," she misled me. "The merger, there was no merger," I said. "There was a data theft operation using you as a mule and me as a scapegoat. They fed you vanity projections, and you chased them like a gambler on his last chip." I slid a printed dossier across the table. "These are your forged approvals. These are the phantom hires. These are your off-ledger communications with Phoenix Consulting. And these," I flipped to the last page, "are screenshots of your deleted messages to Jess, recovered by IT, offering her back-end admin access to our vendor management system." He didn't sit. Couldn't. He staggered backward and caught himself on the edge of the chair like gravity had just started working overtime. "Listen," he rasped. "Just give me a day, 48 hours. I'll clean this up. Talk to compliance." "I'll know," I said. He blinked. "No," he repeated like he couldn't compute a world where that word applied to him. "There's no extension," I said, quieter now. "You don't get more time, you had it. You used it to sell out the company to people who couldn't even keep their shell firm registered past Q3. He turned to the chairman, eyes wild. "You're seriously going to let her do this?" The chairman didn't blink. "She's not doing anything." "You are." And with that, he went back to his tea, as if the conversation had ended before it began. The CEO looked between us, small and twitching, like a man realizing the stage lights had been shut off mid-soliloquy. And I just stood there, not triumphant, not angry, just still, the way only someone can stand when they've seen the whole blueprint and flipped it. The room was colder than usual. Not physically. The air vents were pumping enough recycled air to make a fern weep, but something in the atmosphere had shifted. The boardroom always had a scent: leather chairs, nervous cologne, and tension masked behind catered pastries. But today, it smelled like the prelude to a storm. 12 board members, 11 seated, 1 empty chair. That one, the far seat, directly opposite mine, belonged to the man currently pacing in the hallway like a kid waiting outside the principal's office with urine-soaked pants and a half-baked alibi. He wasn't allowed inside yet. Not until we were ready. The chairman sat at the head, quiet as usual, hands folded like a monk presiding over a corporate exorcism. To his right, our interim general counsel. To his left, the internal audit lead. Hadn't said a word but looked like he'd skipped 3 vacations for this moment. I stood, plugged in the USB, brought up a single slide. "Thank you for convening on short notice," I said. "Let's begin." Slide 1, timeline of events. A clean chronology, time-stamped, documented. From the moment I left for PTO to the morning I opened the forged term sheet. Slide 2, term sheet fraud. Evidence of digital forgery. Signature manipulation. Discrepancies between access logs and my known physical location. Metadata overlays showing admin override permissions traced back to the CEO's IP. Slide 3. Phoenix Consulting LLC, a shell company, now confirmed to be registered under a proxy firm that dissolved 3 days ago. $2.5 M routed through it. No services rendered. No invoice trail. Just a black hole with a smiling Jess Marlin at the edge. Slide 4. Ghost employees. 9 phantom contractors. Old logins reused. Payroll routed to duplicate accounts under different names, all drawing from the same Chase routing number. Slide 5. Internal communications. Deleted Slack messages. Purged emails, all recovered. Threads between the CEO and Jess planning the internal bypass. Quotes like once she signs, it's clean and don't loop her in till it's irreversible. Each slide hit like a gavel. By the time I reached the end, room was dead quiet. I paused, then spoke calmly. Clause 6.2b was activated within Charter Protocol. I assumed operational control not as retaliation, but as risk mitigation. Everything you've seen today confirms this was not a misunderstanding. It was a coordinated breach of fiduciary duty. No one interrupted. No one could. The chairman finally moved. He reached into his folio, same one from earlier in the week, lit a crisp folder across the polished oak. The label reads simply, "Motion to terminate cause retroactive." He opened it, eyes scanning the room like a headmaster with perfect timing. The floor recognizes the termination vote for cause, effective retroactive to the date of documented breach. One by one, the board members nodded. Some scribbled, others simply raised a finger. Unanimous. I could hear footsteps in the hallway. The door opened, and in walked the CEO, shirt wrinkled, tie gone, desperation barely disguised behind a forced smile. He looked around the table, waiting for anyone to acknowledge him. No one did. He turned to me wild-eyed. "Sam, look, I know how this looks, but you and I, come on. We've worked together for years. Can we work something out?" I didn't blink. Just tilted my head. "That's what the extension request was for," I said. "It expired yesterday." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was surgical. A removal of power so swift it left no blood, just vacancy. The chairman stood, walked over to the empty chair across from mine. "Shall we fill the vacancy?" he asked. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. I was already sitting in the right seat, already holding the room, already leading, and the one man who never saw it coming was watching the door close behind him with no keys left to jingle. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.